What a campaign season this has been. I mean, nothing like you anticipated when this all started.
No, it's been hard actually, because I haven't been able to interact with people and get their thoughts and their opinions and their reactions to what I'm putting out. So I feel like I don't want to just have a one-way conversation with the public, because all my life that I've lived here, it's been interacting with people and making sure that the community was empowered and getting their feelings and thoughts out there to our elected officials. And that's what I've done over many, many, many campaigns, and we've worked together so well. So I've been, in February I knocked on about 500 doors, and then after that I started making phone calls. So I've called about 1,000 people. It's not easy to get through to people with phone calls because, you know, people don't want to answer the phone if they don't recognize the number. But it's interesting, a lot of people did. I think they were bored. So we ended up having some really great conversations with people that I wouldn't have reached out to. Maybe just knocking on the door, you maybe have 2 or 3 minutes of their time. I spent one conversation was 45 minutes long, and that was with a businessman in downtown. I talked to a number of business people in the town, a lot of people in education. I talked to the president of the PTA at Walker Grant, and got a lot of good feedback, and that's what I wanted. And I'm just echoing that feedback oftentimes in what I'm putting out, and then I'll hear back from people and they'll say, wait a minute, have you thought of this? And I have changed my mind on a couple of issues, not completely, but there were, I'll give you an example. I was really not happy about the skating rink, because I thought we were told it was going to be free, and then it cost us $150,000. Well, I did talk to the gentleman who's on Parks and Recreation Board, who was really working to have that happen. And he explained to me that they were raising money to pay for the maintenance of that, and they also had raised quite a bit of money to pay for a lot of the equipment and so on. So I backed off on that only in the fact that I'm saying we need honesty from our elected officials and from our staff, and letting us know, okay, this isn't free. This is going to cost us $150,000, and here's the things that are going to happen. So that information was never out there, and so now I'm making sure that people know about that. But I'm still not happy about the way that project came down.
It's interesting though. I mean, you're somebody, you talk and you listen.
Of course. I mean, there are so many smart, really great people in this city. You know, remember, Ted, when we went through that baseball deal with the Hagerstown Sun? Mm-hmm. I reached out to bankers. Ed Allison was one of them. I knew my friend Tony Cantonese is an economist, and we talked to hundreds of people on that, and the whole community was telling us the same thing. This isn't right. We don't need to spend $46 million on a baseball stadium that out of our tax dollars. And so we pushed back. But that was the community coming together, and there's so many instances of that over the last 20 years that we've lived here, that I was able to take comments. Somebody would come to me last year. Rebecca Rubin came to me, and she said, have you taken a look at the Brayhead Farms? And I said, yeah. I said, it's not a really good thing. She said, no, you don't understand. There's 60,000 people visit Brayhead Farms every year. I had no idea. That's about 30,000 of those are children, because we don't have kids. We just have a fur baby, Booker. So we had never been there as a tourist. And finding that out, and then also finding the information as we were going to the city council meetings and we were leaving, there were 2 gentlemen that stopped us and said, one of them said, I've worked for M&M, and another guy said, I've worked for auto junkyards before, and they can't get the fluids out of them. They're going to leak. It's going to go into the river. There's just no way you can stop this. So yes, new information, gather it, share it, and then put it out there.
What got you involved in the race, Ann? Why did you decide to run?
I think it was the Riverfront Park was the last straw for me, Ted. I'm looking at that, and I felt that we were overspending in the city in general on capital improvement plans. I thought that the courthouse was outrageously expensive. We spent the same amount on our courthouse we spent double the amount on our courthouse that Spotsylvania spent on theirs, same size building. I thought that we should have looked at the whole concept of what are we doing over the last 10, 15 years versus approaching one project at a time. If you remember, they started out saying, what do you want in a park? And everybody sat down and came up with a $17 million budget. You remember when that happened? And it was like, what? Instead of saying, here's $2 million, do a park in a floodplain. And so we went to the city council members individually and showed them, here's where it's flooding. I work with John Gerlach on this. And the place where the children's water feature, which is going to cost over $200,000, flooded 2 years ago. And we said, this is ridiculous, a waste of our taxpayer dollars. And we talked to each individual on city council, and then they pulled us all together in the chambers. We weren't allowed to talk. Staff pushed the idea through, and everybody just said, yes, we'll go for it, $4.5 million. And that doesn't include a bathroom or a stage, and that cost doesn't include the acquisition of the property. So we're looking probably at a $10 million park. And yet they tell us they can't build a new elementary school for another 10 years. And we have children that are crammed into the gym, little kindergartners. We have cottages, which are trailers, that are growing at the schools. And we have lots and lots of problems that we're not funding enough salaries for our teachers, that they're leaving in droves. We're underfunding our teachers by about $10,000. So our experienced teachers are leaving, and what we're getting is good, dedicated teachers. I'm not saying they're bad, but an experienced teacher is worth their weight in gold. And we should be paying our teachers. So here we have a park, nice, but it's an amenity. I'm sorry, it's an amenity, especially at that cost. If it would have been grass and trees and, a nice open space for people to gather, fine. It could have been retrofitted and done for a lot less money. So when that happened, I said, you know what, I'm going to get involved, because it was our voices were not being heard. And then the second thing was the hotel over here on Washington and William Street. And the folks in our neighborhood wanted to have the city sit down with us and talk about parking, traffic congestion, and all the other issues that's going to come with that. Now that project is by right, which means the developer gets to do pretty much what he wants to do. But we've all seen what happens if you reach out to the developer. Tom Wack was a perfect example that we reached out to him as a developer and said, can you do something with the facade? Can you do something a little bit more with the design? And he was really responsive on that, and things changed, and he's doing a great project. Whereas this project, we never got a chance to even sit down with the city and talk. The developer gave a perfunctory tour of the project in the basement of the Freelance Star. It's 100 degrees, filled with mosquitoes. Everybody stayed 20 minutes and ran. And then we asked again for the city, and we asked again. And the city didn't even have the courtesy to answer us. Neither did many of the city council people. They just ignored the community. And when you ignore the community, then why do we need you? You're representing us. You're not queens and kings. You're representing us. And that's why I decided to run.
I guess the whole COVID-19 situation, that's going to be what the city and the city budget is surrounded, or is going to be. It's going to be the emphasis now for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. And you know what? I cannot sit here and say, well, I would do this and I would do that, because I'm not at the table, and there's not a lot of information at this point being put out there. So the thing that I'm thinking about with this is that yes, they're cutting spending. I hate that they're cutting staff. I wish that they would take a comprehensive look at the city at this point, because I think there are cost cutting that can be done. I don't think that I've talked about this before, about combining staff from parks, public works, and the schools to do outside maintenance. And you don't have to fire people, because a lot of like the parks and recreation maintenance is done by outside contractors right now. So it could be brought together. But what you have is 3 staffs, 3 supervisors, 3 offices, and they all have their own equipment and they don't loan it to each other. Other than that, it works really well. We're a tiny city. We should be thinking outside the box and how we can bring things together and make things work for our small city, rather than trying to fill every slot that every other large city would do. There's ways to make changes.
I guess in talking to you, one of the changes you'd like to see is it's just more transparency.
Right. So, instead of, and let me be very clear about this. City council sets the vision, and their oversight is really in finance. They should be looking at the budget. They hire and fire only 3 people: the city manager, the clerk of the court, and the city attorney. That's it. So they shouldn't be getting into policy, into the weeds as far as managing personnel and that type of thing. But at the same time, they should be setting policy, and they shouldn't be stepping back. I feel like there is this gap between oversight by our city council, and I think that they are allowing city staff too much control over the vision and the ideas that our city is going to be based on. So there's just that gap that's going on, and I would like them to be more hands-on when it comes to setting that vision and coming up with the ideas of what we're going to be doing going forward. My 3 issues, again, is going to be growth. I mean, we're not going to stop growth. We can't stop growth. It's coming at us like a speeding bullet down 95. But there are ways to manage growth and slow it down and make sure that the growth is happening when we need it and where we need it. So the issue with the schools. Why do we need more schools? Because we have so much growth. And so we have 300 slots left in our schools, and yet we have 1,500 housing units under construction. Well, according to the Planning Commission, each housing unit produces about 0.5 students. So that's 750 students. That's another school. So we're going to be having to cram these children into more trailers or what? Because we're being told no more, we don't have the money to do this. And let me go back and tell you why we don't have the money to do this. We do our long-range capital improvement plans in 5-year increments. Well, is your mortgage 5 years long? Mine isn't.
A little longer.
And so making 5-year plans is like not the right way to do it. So we knew back in 2010 that we needed a new water treatment plant by 2022. We knew by 2018 that was the last time that our old water treatment plant was able to take out the nutrients, the phosphorus and the nitrogen that was needed to make sure it complied with the watershed implementation plan for the Chesapeake Bay. Then we need a new one. We knew that, 2010. Yet at the same, and we knew it was going to cost about $75 million. I guess 50, Dave King said 75, it's 65. So did we plug that into the long-range planning? No, we didn't. So we built a new courthouse and spent a lot of money. It's beautiful. We have one courtroom that's a spare. It hasn't even been built out. They built it for a long-range idea that it's going to be 30 to 50 years, to take care of that. But at the same time, they built it with marble and gorgeous wood. We are a small city. And so we have that. We did 2 new schools, the high school, Walker Grant. We did, in addition to Hugh Mercer, we took the old Walker Grant and we fixed that up to a tune of $12.7 million for a central office for the school board. Needed, but could we have looked at this in a comprehensive way and said, wait a minute, we're going to need this to happen? Part of the problem, we had bad information. We had bad information going into the school expansion 2 years ago when they wanted to expand Lafayette Elementary School. So they had paid somebody $50,000 to do a study for us. It was bad information. Weldon Cooper did another study. Weldon Cooper does all the studies for the state. That only cost $800. And Weldon Cooper said, no, you have a bad study. You're going to have a lot more kids. And so planning is everything. You know, Ted, we haven't had a strategic plan since 1995. So a strategic plan isn't really, so we've got land use plans. That's the comprehensive plan. That's how many dwelling units you're going to have on this piece of property and where it's going to be and so on. Strategic plan really deals with economics. It deals with taxes and infrastructure and growth. So you're going to grow this much. You're going to need these many schools, these many fire departments, the library. All of these things have to balance with that growth. But along with that is paying for it with taxes and making sure that you have enough balance between residential taxes and business. Right now, we're talking about having to cut $8 million out of our budget. They haven't even come back with what's got to be cut out next year because we don't know. So it's going to be significant. And we've based our economy is 14% is on tourism and 11% is retail sales tax, both of which have taken a tremendous hit and I don't think are going to come back anytime soon. Here's a real opportunity to pivot and take a look at where do we want to grow. And I think tech is where we need to talk. I spoke to one gentleman the other day on the phone. He's got a tech company here. He hasn't heard from the city since this virus situation. He has not heard from economic development, finding out what his needs are, what the problems are, and what he needs as far as to make his business go. You know, 80% of all new business growth comes from existing businesses, not from, let's get a new person in here. That's not how it works. You get your regular businesses and you help them expand, grow, and thrive. That's what we need to do. I've been doing a lot of talking.
Just a couple more questions. Your name is synonymous with Tree Fredericksburg, but as we have talked today, I think anybody would say there's more to Ann than just trees. I mean, you know these issues.
I do, and I've been following our city for a long time. I go to almost every city council meeting, every work session, every planning commission meeting. Oftentimes, I'm the only person at the planning commission meetings, but that's where you learn things, and that's where you get to voice your concerns and your and what's affecting the city. And so, the work sessions are not televised, and I think that's a shame.
I wish they were.
Well, it actually, if you go to Stafford, they're televised. Mm-hmm. If you go to Spotsylvania, they're televised. Why aren't ours? That is where the business of our city is conducted, really. And that is where we get a lot of information. And if I'm elected, I am definitely going to be making sure that that happens one way or another. If we have to change the time, whatever we have to do, we have to make sure that happens.
Well, I'll give you a chance to wrap this up. Why should people vote for Ann Little for mayor?
I think if you want a change, and I'm not saying that I'm going to come in and clean house. I'm going to be only one vote on a 7-person city council. The mayor has no special powers. It's a ceremonial position at that. But I think sometimes just changing one person can change the dynamics And I think that the dynamics that we have right now is that for a lot of years, the same people have making the same decisions and controlling what's happening in our city. And if you like what's going on right now and you like the direction our city's going on, then you probably shouldn't vote for me. But if you want to see a change in attitude where we open up the government to more people, more ideas, I mean, I would love to see a business council, or I want to say a business council, a council of citizens and business people get together and come up with some more ideas on how we are going to emerge from the coronavirus crisis. You know what? All the good ideas aren't just in the city council or in the staff. There's tremendous ideas. As I've been talking to people, there are fabulous ideas coming out. And why aren't their voices being heard? Well, because it's never been done that way for a long time. And I think that it's time for a change. Thanks for talking to me, Ted. I really appreciate it.
And before we conclude, I guess since a lot of this election will be absentee ballots, if you get your ballot and make sure you drop it off or send it in.
Right, and there's a couple things that people need to understand. You need to apply for your absentee ballot, first of all. You can do that online. If you don't want to do that, you can give me a call, 540-207-4298. And we will put an absentee ballot hang it on your doorstep, or we'll hang it on our back gate. People have been picking them up here at our back gate. So you need to get that in by next Tuesday, that's the 12th. And then you get your ballot, and you need to get that in by the 19th. Once you apply for that ballot, you don't get to go and vote in person. You have to vote. You only get one ballot. You either get it absentee or you get it in person. So if you get that ballot, you need to vote absentee, either getting it back in by mail, or there's a drop box right at the Executive Office Building at 601 Caroline Street. And it's there, it's a red box, it's there 24 hours, and you can drop off your application for an absentee ballot and also your ballot. The tricky thing right now, I've heard from a couple people, is that you have to have your ballot, witnessed. There you go. And so that's going away with the new laws that are coming in July from the General Assembly. But right now, like I spoke to a woman yesterday, she called me, she says, how do I get my ballot witnessed? I'm sheltering, and I'm older, and I don't want to have people around. And I said, what you can do is have the person come, stand out your window, have your neighbor come and stand outside your window, witness your signature, pass the ballot out to them with the envelope, have them witness this, and mail it for you, and put it in the mailbox. And that way you've got it. Or get it back to you and you can mail it. But one way or another, you're going to have a witness, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, Ted. I appreciate your time.